gerade wie die Elbsworte Vorbild war. Ja. Und natürlich dann einfach in den Sound, spielt dann eben die Nachdrucke rein. Ja, klar. Also kein Problem damit, der Sound ist perfekt. Du hörst kein Kameraklicken bei dem Mann. Du hörst natürlich vorher das Kameraklicken.
For some additional comments.
Thank you very much, Scott. You know, today is 150 years in the making. It's the culmination of what we learned as school children in our history class, the connecting of East and West. It goes all the way back to 1862. President Abraham Lincoln signs into existence the Union Pacific Railroad at one of the darkest moments in our nation's history. And his vision is that we're going to stitch the country together. We're going to have the Union Pacific building west from the Missouri. And we're going to have the Central Pacific building east from the banks of the American River downtown Sacramento. And they will meet and they will create one united nation. That story was about the visionaries that saw what this Transcontinental Railroad would do. It's about the workforce, the laborers working 12, 14, 16-hour days in the most brutal, punishing conditions to build this railroad virtually by hand. It's about our First Nations whose lives and cultures were changed forever. And it's about the communities that were created, communities like Ogden, that initially might have been a water stop or a way along a journey, and ultimately became economic engines in their own right. You know, the wedding of the railroads happened just 40 miles northwest of here on May 10th, 1869, and it changed America forever. Travel that took 6 months to go from New York to San Francisco at the risk of your life literally turned into a 10-day excursion in relative comfort. Global trade changed forever. Our diets changed forever. What we thought was possible changed forever. And while that connection was finally complete, and it was the culmination of years of hard work, the journey really was only beginning. The creator of the famous golden spike knew that better than all, as he inscribed on that famous spike a prayer that's as purposeful today as it was in 1869. May God continue the unity of our country like this railroad unites the two great oceans of this world. That's a hope that stands the test of time, and it still matters today. I've been to run across a family, one of you, somebody in this crowd, who came here because Sally, her father, Mr. Gillies, who passed away roughly a year ago, his final wish was to become a part of the Union Pacific Railroad by being consumed in the boiler of the great 4014, the big boy. She told me that story. This is Mr. Gillies, and I want to share with you what's written on his ashes. The last wish was for his ashes to go through the firebox of the 4014 big boy. It was his life dream to see one in action, but cancer stopped him too soon. He was a train engineer. He worked in the United Kingdom on the Swindon Railways, a continent away. And Union Pacific and the 4014 big boy meant that much to him. So we're going to honor that last wish, and it's going to be our honor to do so. Thank you for reminding me of that, Governor Herbert.
Significant achievement of the 19th century. It is that century's moon landing. The rail system shortened the trip across the plains that took months, and my ancestors had to walk every step of the way down to 5 to 6 days. To emphasize the importance of the site, of this site, where crews joined the east and the westbound tracks to create the nation's first transcontinental railroad, my Utah and Washington, D.C. colleagues and I have worked hard to expand this site's national importance. So I'm proud to say that on March 12th of this year, President Trump signed into law the designation in the National Resource Management Act that this Golden Spike National Historic Site is now a full-fledged National Historic Park.
the creator of the famous golden spike, had the wisdom to inscribe on that spike a prayer that was as appropriate on that day as it is today. May God continue to unite this country as this railroad unites the two great oceans of the world. May God continue to unite this country as this railroad unites the two great oceans of the world.
Promontory to the country, we have got done praying. The spike is about to be presented.
Thank you, Reverend Todd. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce a fellow resident of Sacramento, Dr. H.W. Harkness, who will present 2 railroad spikes to Dr. Thomas C. Durant of the Union Pacific Railroad and Governor Leland Stanford of the Central Pacific Railroad. Dr. Durant and Governor Stanford will then place these spikes into holes that have already been drilled in the laurelwood tie. But these are not ordinary spikes. Ladies and gentlemen, these are golden spikes made from pure California gold. Dr. Harkness.
Gentlemen of the
the Pacific Railroad, and those of you who have met with it. The last spike needed to unite the Atlantic and the Pacific by a new line of trade and commerce is about to be driven to its place. To perform this act, the East and the West have come together. Never since history commenced her record of human events has man been called upon to meet the completion of a work so magnificent in contemplation and so marvelous in execution. California, within whose borders and by whose citizens the Pacific Railroad was inaugurated, desires to express her appreciation of the vast importance to her and her sister states of the great enterprise which by joint action is about to be consummated. From her mines of gold has been forged a spike. From her laurelwoods has been hewn a tie. And by the hands of her citizens, she offers them to become part of this great highway which is about to unite her in closer fellowship with her sisters of the Atlantic. From her bosom was taken the first soil. Let hers be the last tie and the last spike. And with them, accept the hopes and wishes of her people, that the success of your enterprise will not stop short of its brightest promise. This spike was donated by Mr. Frank Marriott, publisher of the San Francisco Newsletter. And in conclusion, I should like to draw your attention to this spike, the gift of David Hughes of San Francisco. On its head is inscribed, the last spike. On 3 sides, the names of railroad officials, and on the 4th side, this sentence: may God continue the unity of our country as this railroad unites the 2 great oceans of the world. Dr. Grant?
And now, friends, it is not only my duty, but my honor and privilege to introduce a man of vision, a man of courage, a humanitarian, and one who is highly esteemed by those of us who call him our friend. He is a Californian whose farsightedness has contributed in large measure to the success of this great enterprise. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Central Pacific Railroad, Governor Leland Stanford.
Gentlemen, the Pacific Railroad companies accept with pride and satisfaction these gold and silver tokens of your appreciation of the importance of our enterprise to the material interests of the whole country, north, south, east, and west. These gifts shall receive a fitting place in the superstructure of our road. But before driving the last spike in the completion of the Pacific Railroad, allow me to express the hope that the great importance which you are pleased to attach to our undertaking may be in every respect fully realized. This line of rails connecting Atlantic and Pacific and affording to commerce a new transit will prove, we trust, the speedy forerunner of increased facilities. The day is not far distant when 3 tracks shall be found necessary to accommodate the commerce and travel which shall seek transit across this continent. Freight will move only in one way on each track, granting the demands of cheapness and time. In conclusion, I might add, we hope to do ultimately that which is now impossible on long lines, transport coarse, heavy, and cheap products at limiting rates to the train.
Thank you, Governor Stanford, for your astute and timely remarks. We regret that Dr. Durant is suffering from a severe headache and has temporarily retired to his quarters. In his absence and in the absence of the President of the Union Pacific Railroad, Mr. Oliver Ames, we have asked General Grenville Dodge, Chief Engineer, to represent his railroad with a few remarks.
Mr. Mills, thank you. Gentlemen, the great senator from Missouri, Thomas Hart Benton, proposed that someday a giant statue of Columbus should be erected on the highest peak of the Rocky Mountains, pointing westward, denoting this as the great route across our continent. Today, you have made that prophecy a fact. This is the way to India!
Thank you, General Dodge. Ladies and gentlemen, that moment for which you and the entire nation have been waiting. The driving of the last spike is at hand. At this time, we wish to commend both railroad companies and their workers for their efficiency and hard work in bringing this monumental undertaking to its successful fruition in a record 6.5 years instead of the 12 years allotted to the venture. A final presentation will be made in the form of a silver-plated spike maul by Mr. L.W. Coe, President of the Pacific Union Express Company, after which Governor Stanford and Dr. Durant will make a few ceremonial taps on the precious metal spikes with the maul. Mr. Coe. Thank you.
Railroad officials, honored guests, and friends, it is the honor of the officers and workers of the Pacific Union Railroad Company who have their congratulations upon the completion of this modern-day miracle. This silver-plated spike maul is symbolic of our good wishes.
Absolutely beautiful. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the moment has arrived. Boston and New Orleans have wired that they are ready and waiting. Indeed, throughout the length and breadth of the country, people everywhere are waiting at every Western Union station. As Mr. Schilling gives a signal that the last spike is driven, a magnetic ball will fall in the dome of the national Capitol. In San Francisco, the fire alarm bell will ring. A volley of 200 rounds will be fired in salute at Fort Point. And in Philadelphia, the Liberty Bell will ring again.
We're ready. Promontory to the country, all ready now. Dr. Durant has adjusted the spike. The spike will soon be driven. The signal will be 3 dots for the commencement of the blows.
All right, Governor.
Governor. You got somebody who knows.
Perhaps we need a real railroad worker up here to make this star job done. There we go. Drive her home.
Promontory to the country. Bulletin. D. O. M. E. Down.
Of these United States.
you.